Hello, good evening. I hope you had a good week. Hope the weather hasn't been quite as unsettled and unseasonal where you are. We had a very exciting, full-on week. We had my folks here staying with us, and that's always great fun. If only because we get to see all the exciting things that our little lad wants to show them. It's also a week of a bit of a quick, rather rushed garden building project. And as the weather was closing in, and we were finally getting the roof on the what we're referring to as the play garage, um, because it's where a lot of the garden toys, the bikes and things are going to go. Uh, our little lad said to us, "Well, look, we did it just in time, just in time. It was just in time," which was just made me chuckle. There's another phrase he started using a lot, and it tends to happen when we ask him to do something or to stop doing something. He says this: "Oh, I shall in future." Generally speaking, while he's still doing the thing we've asked him not to, or not doing the thing we've asked him to. "Don't do that, please," we say. He says, "I won't do it in future." He's busy doing it, or "I will do it in future." And it got me thinking this week, as I was getting ready for tonight, about how it might sound quite funny when it's coming from a 3-year-old, but I know so many people who live their lives like that. People who know me know that I love a good plan. Almost regardless of whether or not in the end I do it, I like to have a plan for anything and everything. I like to have thought through how I would respond in situations. And being an insomniac, I suppose I have an awful lot of time when everybody else is sensibly asleep when I can think through things. And it's fine to a point, but there are only certain things that you can plan for. Knowing what you'll do in some eventual situation, or should an opportunity arise, or should you be faced with some question or issue, is all very well, but the reality of life is it doesn't happen like that. If there's anything that we learned from the arrival of COVID in our lives, it was that there are some things you simply can't plan for. You just can't prepare. The Bible talks about it. It talks about the fact that time and chance happen to us all. I don't know who originally said it, but one of my favorite sort of pop culture quotes is, "Life is what happens while you're making other plans." And spiritually, that's also true. Spiritually, there is a real sense so often that we should build up to something, or we should prepare for something. Religion likes to tell you that you should prepare for everything. There's preparation even for celebrating something. We are told by religion that we should fast in preparation for remembering Easter. They call it Lent, and then what was once the idea of Advent, which was the idea of thinking about the return of Jesus, has become, for all sorts of reasons, confused with the idea of getting ready for Christmas. You want to get ready for it. If you want to be baptized, religion says you better go through 5 weeks or 10 weeks of classes. You better be prepared. And yet the reality is that so many of the most important spiritual things in our lives, the most important decisions, they happen in a moment. Now, says the Bible, is the acceptable time. Now, now is the moment of salvation. And there are some decisions that you can't plan for. And tonight, those who know some of the parables Jesus tells well enough will no doubt be thinking of at least one parable in which Jesus speaks very harshly of a man's plans. But instead of that, I want to to have a look at the experience of someone whose circumstances had led them to have an awful lot of thinking time. And they'd lived their whole life in the expectation that if they could just work out how to do it, there was one way to change their circumstances. And so when the moment of choice came, they didn't recognize what was happening. I'm going to read from John 5. This is the story of a man who spent his whole life sitting by a pool, waiting for an opportunity that was never going to come. John 5, verse 1. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the waters. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease they had. Now a certain man was there who had been sick for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him and said, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. That day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said to him who was cured, "It's the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to carry your bed." He answered them, "He who made me well said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" And they asked him, "Well, who was the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" But the one who was healed didn't know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, there being a great crowd in that place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you've been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. You know, one of the things about the setting that isn't immediately apparent unless you know a little bit about the pool is that the walls of the sheep pool, or the pool by the sheep gate rather, they were steep. They were just vertical sides made of stone. And if you'd gone into that water and not been able to swim, paralyzed, unable to move, you would never have come out of it. The man had a plan, and it was a plan based on this idea, which may or may not have been a mythology, but either way, what was an awful kind of competition. First one in is healed. Second one in is now just paralyzed or lame or sick or whatever, but in the water, having to try and get out. And he's been there day after day, day after day, day after day for 38 years. Can't get in the water quickly enough. Tries, but there's always someone first. And so he's got a plan, and it's a stupid plan. It's a risky plan. It's a plan that is based in sort of a fantasy of hope. Now, I know so many people, and when you talk to them about getting their lives right, when you talk to them about changing the patterns that are hurting or destroying them, when you talk to them about seeking God and discovering what they are about, what their whole life is for, they tell you it's later, when I've got more time, when I have space in my busy life, when I've achieved certain goals, when I've become confident in who I am. There's all sorts of excuses. When I've taken care of business, when I have found the relationships that I think I need to make my life secure. And they've got all sorts of plans, but they're plans that at best aren't going to work, and at worst They're plans with no hope of success because they are invested in something that is in itself crushing. When I'm rich enough, when I've got that promotion, when I look the way I should, when I've got I've met my health goals, when I've achieved my place in community or society, when I feel like the things that I do with my life somehow validate me. You know, people can set the most noble of goals, and then life happens and it just chews them up and spits them out. By comparison, the offer that Jesus makes is really, really simple. To this man, he says, do you want to be made well? You think after 38 years, he'd scream yes. But he's no longer thinking about what he actually needs. He's thinking about the plan. He's thinking about the path that he's laid out for himself. He's thinking about the hurdles and the obstacles to doing the thing that he thinks will release him from his suffering. So tonight, I don't know where you find yourself, but I know this, that if you have a plan and you think that plan is going to make you free, and that plan is going to make you happy, and that plan is going to resolve how you feel about your past, and that plan is going to open up opportunity and freedom and peace in your future, but there are some practical obstacles to your plan tonight, I believe that God's offer is freedom now, is peace now, is healing now, is wholeness now, is comfort now, is wisdom now, is certainty now. But not by removing the roadblocks that you see to you achieving your plan, by releasing you from the needs that caused you to make it in the first place. Maybe to you, it's not the question, do you want to be well? Maybe to you, it's the question, do you want to be free? Do you want to be forgiven? Do you want to be safe? Do you want to have peace in your mind? Whatever the thing is that you keep thinking you've got to fight for, you've got to make a way, you've got to achieve. Life, the only life worth living, the only life, in fact, worthy of the name, the life that is a life of peace and joy and righteousness in the kingdom of God, that life is available not when you have achieved a set of goals, not when you've worked towards a particular plan, not when you've accomplished your own list or your own to-do list and you're somehow no, it is available the moment that you reach out to Jesus in trust and say, God, help me. I need you. You know, it can be a hard thing to let go of the plans that we have, a hard thing to let go of the responsibility of feeling like, well, it's down to me. It amazes me how many people would rather feel they were in control than to feel that they had achieved what they needed. Would rather be plucky and failing than to admit that they need help and to be where they need to be. Jesus sees where you're at. He knows how long you've struggled with it. He knows that your plan may not be a particularly healthy one, may not be a plan that you can achieve, maybe beyond your abilities, may actually be based on something that's not real at all. He isn't coming to you and assessing the quality of your plan. He's not coming to you and saying, have you worked hard enough and long enough for this? No, no. Do you want to be whole? Do you want to be well? Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be free? Do you want to be forgiven? Do you want to be made new? Do you want to have peace? Do you want to know what it is to discover the life you were made for and to live in relationship with God? Do you want to be made free? Because if the answer to that question is yes, then I would encourage you to lay your plans down. You see, I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know if tomorrow suddenly everything will fall into place. I don't know if tomorrow you'll achieve all the things that you've been wanting to achieve. But I also don't know if tomorrow there won't be some other unexpected disaster. You know, I can still remember the last Sunday night that we did all together, physically having supper together in that building up at Elmhurst before COVID struck. And we had no idea lockdown was coming. We knew there was this thing out there, but we didn't know that we were going to be asked to stop gathering, to stop meeting together. And so we had a lovely Sunday night. And we talked about all the things we usually talked about, how people's week had been and what people were planning and what was coming up. And we all said, well, God bless, we'll see you soon. And by the middle of that week, we were telling everybody we can't be doing Sunday because we have to go into lockdown. We had no idea it was coming. I don't know what the next challenge will be. It may not be a challenge that faces everybody. It might just be a challenge that faces you. Tonight, I want to tell you that whatever you're facing and whatever unexpected circumstances might mess with the plans that you have, might throw everything into question, that the one thing that isn't shaken, the one thing that isn't changed, the one person who is never caught off guard by the circumstances that wash through the seasons of our lives is Jesus. And tonight, he's everything that any of us need. So, if you're a planner, well, I get it. I am too. And if you've got some plans, and actually they're great plans, well, I pray that God blesses you to see them through, that you will achieve the things that you are working towards. But if your life is based on, well, if I get this, then all of the things that I need will be resolved. If you are hoping in the things that you can achieve, or if you feel like there are things that will only be resolved if you attain something, tonight I'd love to see you free of that. Free of that burden, free of that obligation, and knowing what it is for God to be your way and to receive the offer of life, of abundance, of peace that Jesus gives. If you're planning to get right with God some other time, well, there is no better time than now. If you're planning to investigate how you're going to spend eternity later, well, don't leave it another minute. If you're dragging around the burdens of your past, saying, well, one day I'll do some work to try and deal with them, Jesus can just speak a word tonight and you can be free of all of them. And so my prayer is that you'll reach out to him and you'll say, God, help me. Rescue me. Break into my plans, break into my agenda. You bring me into the life that I was made for. And I'm trusting you for my future, you for my life, you for my forgiveness. not leaning on the things that I've figured out I might be able to do. It's a really simple question. And all you need to say is, yes, Lord, to receive everything that he has for you. That's our thoughts for tonight. Hope you have a good week. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us. The details below these videos. Always pleased to pray God's best for you, or to celebrate the good things God's doing in your life, or to just to hear from you. We don't have answers, but we know the God who is the answer. And it always does our hearts good to share fellowship. Anyway, God bless. God willing, we'll see you next Sunday night.